Hello and welcome to Campaign Chronicles, France 24's regular countdown to the presidential election. With 15 weeks to go now, things are hotting up. Coming up in today's show, the new year sees party hostilities reopen after the Christmas truce. Just how long should the president wait until throwing his hat into the ring? And in Faces and Places, a top-level athlete says despite her achievements, she still thinks about her pension. Well, let's crack on and discuss this week's big story. For that, I'm joined by our Campaign Chronicles reporter, Luke Brown. And Luke, a new year means a new gear for the campaign.
Very much so, and especially François Hollande, the socialist candidate. He's accelerating his campaign. Lots of media appearances this week. He had the front page of Libération, the left-leaning newspaper. He was on the national news on Tuesday night, and his first campaign rally on Wednesday. The big problem with all these media appearances, though, is a bit of a lack of actual substance. We still don't know what the Socialist Party's campaign programme is going to be. We think it's going to be about the January the 22nd. It's going to be revealed, but it's only going to be about 5 pages long. They're going for a bit of simplicity then. That could be a vote winner or a vote loser. Perhaps they're worried they don't want to make too many promises they can't keep in these times of economic turmoil. It's also difficult for them. It has to be said that given that the UMP in power has not yet revealed its programme, well, they don't really know what they're to compare and contrast against, so they're keeping their programme under wraps too.
All right, what about the UMP then? How are they reacting to all this?
Well, they're very fast and very hard reacting to these media appearances. As early as 4:50 in the morning on Tuesday, when that front page came out, they were already sending out communiques. Later on in the day, they'd already mocked up a fake version of Libération, calling it Hibernation, such as François Hollande is burying his head in the sand to a certain extent. They've already bought up the domain name for the Socialist Party's likely campaign slogan, that is, a change is now. And they're also basically leaping on any slip-up made by Hollande. Earlier in the week, off the record, he told, for example, a journalist that Nicolas Sarkozy was a sale mec, a nasty piece of business. It's rather debatable, the meaning and the context, but it does demonstrate just how the UMP, the senior UMP figures, they're really rushing in to put pressure on François Hollande by calling him to apologise. That takes attention away, perhaps, from their undeclared candidate, that is to say, Nicolas Sarkozy. That's why François Hollande has already said enough is enough about this kind of childish behaviour. Let's move on. But in the absence of any real substance, we are kind of stuck in this debate.
All right, we'll come back to you a little later in the programme. Look, thanks for now, though. We've heard how François Hollande has had a busy beginning to the year then. So too has President Sarkozy, even though he's still not an official candidate, which begs the question, when is the most judicious moment to enter the race?
Nicolas Sarkozy began 2012 much like he ended 2011, with multiple visits around the country, even though the president still isn't officially a candidate. That may look like the campaign trail then, but in his New Year's message, Sarkozy insisted the election is not his priority.
A presidential election is due in 5 months. That's an important date. When the time comes, you'll make your choice, but in the meantime, I have to act.
The president is set for a busy month, crisscrossing France in January, wishing the French a happy new year, no fewer than 15 times. Nicolas Sarkozy insists he doesn't want to be distracted by a campaign in these times of economic turmoil. That patience apparently shared by his party allies, following the party line.
The president is at the ship's wheel in this storm.
Today there are lots of decisions to take.
People want someone who's not an amateur skipper. They want a captain for the storm.
That's what the French expect of him, to be president to the end.
Today he's working for the French, and they might not really like him to do anything other than govern our country.
A late entry into the race is more the rule than the exception. No sitting president has ever launched his campaign before February. Jacques Chirac is the only incumbent to jump in so early.
Oui, je suis candidat.
François Mitterrand in 1988 waited until barely a month before the first round of voting.
Êtes-vous à nouveau candidat à la présidence de la République? Oui.
Leaving it late then may be a strategy, but as Sarkozy is still trailing in the polls, it could also be a mistake.
It shows he doesn't understand his adversary, and also a degree of self-satisfaction. And it demonstrates a weakness, because he could still propose something to voters, but that's not what he's doing.
So when exactly is the Goldilocks moment? Not too early and not too late.
The best time to decide on running is the 15th of January. If his popularity doesn't clearly rise in the coming weeks, by 5 to 10 points in the next 10 days or so, then he's dead in the water.
The president and his party may not be showing that urgency, but as he continues not campaigning, one thing is sure: the deadline for him to join the race isn't until March the 16th.
Well, it's time now to take a look at the other big stories in the presidential campaign. The left wing unite to defend one man, and there's a whole host of New Year's wishes straight from the smaller candidate's living room.
Happy New Year. Time for optimistic resolutions, and in France, a message for the voters. Across the party lines, the tone is similar.
Le changement, c'est maintenant.
Changer les choses.
Le changement.
Vous pouvez changer la France.
But beyond finding out more about the smaller candidates such as Hervé Morin and their living rooms, what do the online videos show? Far-right Marine Le Pen says 2012 is the year to put France back on its feet, while centrist François Bayrou says 2011 is best forgotten. And left-winger Jean-Luc Mélenchon wants to energise his backers.
2012, c'est l'année du chamboule-tout. C'est votre tour.
A common cause for the far left. 4 presidential candidates showed their solidarity with one man's legal battle. Xavier Mathieu is a trade unionist taken to court for refusing to give his DNA sample after being arrested at a protest. Demonstrating the diversity of left-wing politics in France, at his side the Greens' Eva Joly, Jean-Luc Mélenchon of the Front de Gauche, as well as smaller parties like Nathalie Arthaud from Workers' Struggle and Philippe Poutou of the new Anti-Capitalists Party. They say it's not a political issue, even if it is a chance to reconnect with working-class voters. It does mean that the socialist candidate's absence was noted.
François Hollande was invited by Xavier Mathieu to support him. He decided not to. I'll let you judge him on that.
And an embarrassing mistake for the man who's made a slogan out of Made in France. Centrist François Bayrou's own website uses stock photos bought from overseas sources. Unfortunately for the champion of domestically produced goods, his party says they didn't find any French photos that suited.
Well, Luke Brown is still with us here in the studio, and you've got a tweet of the week for us.
Yes, there are 2 types of Twitter user, we get the impression. In politics, those that have a media team to do it for them, and those that take it very seriously indeed. One of those is Nadine Morano. We know that she spent most of Christmas tweeting, and despite promises since then that she was actually going to cut down, she spent quite a lot of time attacking Hollande's media campaign, as we've seen earlier in the show. This has left Valérie Trierwiller, who is a journalist and most importantly the partner of François Hollande. She's basically sulking. She's saying she's going to unfollow Nadine Morano. Morano is in a reply saying, let's get a coffee, but let's wait until the election's finished. The date for that rendezvous is May the 7th.
Okay, we can watch Twitter to find out what happens next. Well, it's time now for Faces and Places, France 24's weekly rendezvous with voters. This week, we meet an athlete who's aiming for gold at the Olympics, but that's not her only priority. She knows her career as a sportswoman won't go on forever, and she's thinking about her future.
Gladys has just come back from a competition, and as is the case every time, she won. She practices Taekwondo, a martial art of Korean origins. She's won several French and world champion titles. One of her secrets is to train with the male team. It gives her self-confidence.
They pamper me, it's good.
But Gladys spares no effort. Being a committed athlete is a full-time job.
We're used to saying that we train like professionals, but without the same money. It's an everyday investment. We spend more time with our fellow We train for 25 hours a week, and to handle that, we need to lead a healthy lifestyle.
Gladys works out at the National Institute for Sports and Performance that trains top-level athletes, a paradise for this committed sportswoman. But this life has its drawbacks too, mainly when it comes to pensions. Athletes are immediately disadvantaged by the fact that they don't work full-time. But this will change beginning January the 1st, 2012.
It's not like we're giving our lives to the country, but we do represent France, and we invest so much. This pension issue really affects me, and I support all the moves to give us a better retirement scheme.
What Gladys would also like to see changed is the number of homeless people in France.
We're a large country, a rich country, full of resources. And seeing homeless people on the streets, even in the nice areas of Paris, it disturbs me. It really bothers me.
Among the issues debated during this election campaign, Gladys, whose parents are from Cameroon, believes an important one is the right of foreigners to vote in elections.
Foreigners who live legally in our country, who pay their taxes and raise their children, they deserve the right to vote. It would be a way for them to feel recognised and fully integrated into the country where they've chosen to live.
Gladys is proud to represent France in competition. She's even been made a National Order of Merit officer. But for her next medal, she's going for gold at the London Olympic Games.
Well, that's all we've got time for in this edition. Don't forget, you can check out our webpage, our Facebook page, or you can follow Luke's Twitter account and let us know what you think. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
From January to June, our reporters and special correspondents will bring you in-depth coverage of the US primaries, live on France 24.